opportunities. You deserve the opportunity to rot away. You deserve the opportunity to absorb the look of terror on your face once you leave this courtroom. You deserve the opportunity of knowing that justice will prevail at some point, causing you great anguish, minute by minute, day by day. So coming back to the question of what I would say, since I'm now face to face with you, sort of virtually, may the words of my mouth and the sentiments of the entire Parkland community, along with the voices of the extended community, grant you resonating images and reminders of the resolute decisions you've chosen. May our resolve continually prod you of the freedoms you no longer have and the ones that will continually be taken from you. Please exercise your right and rot in hell. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Al-Hadaf.
Thank you.
Your students were very well behaved.
Thank you.
All right. State, who's next?
The state would next call Anika and Mitchell Dworet.
Good afternoon, Mr. and Mrs. Dworet. Will both of you be speaking today?
Only me.
Okay. Mrs. Dworet, would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, ma'am. You can put your hand down. Please state your full name for the record.
Anika Dworet.
Okay, whenever you're ready, state.
Mrs. Dworet, would you like to say something on behalf of your son, Nikolas?
Yes, I do.
Please go ahead.
We sat in this courtroom every single day during this trial. We listened to every witness. We saw every piece of evidence. It is heartbreaking how any person who heard and saw all this did not give this killer the worst punishment possible. As we all know, the worst punishment in the state of Florida is the death penalty. How much worse would the crime have to be to warrant the death penalty? And to spare this killer's life, because he has mental health issues, doesn't every single person who chooses to murder people have some kind of mental health issue? It was extremely painful to hear all the horrific details of this massacre at All Children's High School. Just to be in the same room as this monster who killed our son Nikolas and attempted to murder our son Alex. This unbearable. One of the most disgusting and unprofessional actions that occurred in this courtroom was the defense team holding, touching, and giggling with this cold-blooded murderer. We found this to be so offensive to our family, as well as our son Nikolas' memory. We would like to thank you, Judge Scherer, for being professional and fair during this trial. You did an excellent job. The prosecution team, you're all amazing lawyers. We will forever be grateful for the professional way you presented this case and for all the hard work you put into it. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who continue to be with us with love and support through this difficult journey. Victim advocates in Eagles Haven, your support have been invaluable during this trial. After today, no one will speak of this killer. He will be forgotten. We will, however, always remember, honor, and live for Alyssa, Scott, Martine, Aaron, Jamie, Chris, Luke, Kara, Gina, Joaquin, Elena, Meadow, Helena, Alex, Carmen, Peter, and our beautiful Nikolas. May their memories be a blessing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lori Anika.
Good morning, good afternoon, Ms. Al-Hadad. Would you please raise your right hand? Are you both going to be speaking?
Yes.
Okay. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You can put your hands down, and would you both please state your full names for the record?
Lori Kim Alhadaf.
Ilan Aladef.
Thank you.
Mrs. Alhadef, would you like to make a statement on behalf of your daughter?
Yes.
Please.
On February 13, 2018, Alyssa played in the last soccer game of her life wearing the number 8. After the game, we got in the car, and I turned to Alyssa, and I said, Alyssa, you know you just played the best game of your life. And she said, yeah, I know, Mom. A mom's love for her child is indescribable. As Alyssa's mother, I would have done anything for her. I would have given my life in exchange for Alyssa's, and I would have had the courage to run into that building. I would have taken the 8 bullets for Alyssa. On February 14, 2018, the most painful day of my life, I sat there numb with the new reality that my only daughter, Alyssa, was shot and killed. Alyssa was the type of kid that brought people together with her beautiful smile and contagious laugh. She deserved so much more time here on earth. Alyssa was the heartbeat of our family. On February 15th, I went to the medical examiner's office to see Alyssa. They handed me an 8x10 color photo of Alyssa. Only later that day was I finally able to see Alyssa in person. I tried to warm her body with my hands. She was so cold. I remember that I touched her in the multiple areas where Alyssa was shot with my hands. All I wanted to do was to bring Alyssa back to life, but I couldn't protect her and I couldn't save her. You robbed Alyssa a lifetime of memories. Alyssa will never graduate from high school. Alyssa will never go to college. And Alyssa will never play soccer. She will never get married. And she will never have a baby. To the killer of Alyssa Miriam Al-Hadef, my hope is for you is that you are miserable for the rest of your pathetic life. My hope for you is that the pain of what you did to my family burns and traumatizes you every day. One day, God will decide your fate. As the Great Seal of the state of Florida says, in God we trust. May your life be horrific, painful, and show no mercy. To my daughter Alyssa, know that your light will always shine, and I will continue to be your voice. I will continue to fight for change, and I will work the rest of my life honoring you with my work at our nonprofit organization, Make Our Schools Safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Alhadef, you have words you would like to speak.
I do. Your Honor, thank you for allowing me to speak one last time. Let me share how angry and frustrated I am with the judicial system. After 4.5 grueling years, a failed judicial system did not hand down a death sentence to the murder of my daughter and 16 others. Do I see this as accountability? Absolutely not. Do we now have closure? Let me be clear. Absolutely not. What I see is that the system values this animal's life over the 17 now dead. Worse, we sent a message to the next killer out there that the death penalty would not be applied to mass killing. This is wrong and needs to be fixed immediately. Alyssa deserved so much more than to be shot 8 times in her English class. Alyssa deserved to live her life and fulfill her dreams. She deserved to experience life for all that it had to offer and all that she had to offer this world. To the Parkland murderer that killed my daughter, you skirted the death penalty, and you are nothing but a coward. But know this, while my family mourns our beautiful Alyssa, you will not own us, nor our feelings. We will go on glorifying Alyssa's life through our foundation, make our schools safe, and like my wife said, we will be her voice. Alyssa's law will become federally mandated, and we will make our schools safe from animals like you. We will make sure that everyone remembers Alyssa. You, on the other hand, will remain in a cage like the creature you are. I only pray that you get to rot in that cage and that you are punished each day 17 times over for the 17 you murdered. I stand by others who say that you have no redeemable value. You killed without remorse, without compassion, without prejudice, so shall you receive the same in return. Prisoner 0893407. So now let me ask Your Honor to redeem my belief in the judicial system. Provide a punishment like no other. Stop providing the safety and security for this animal. Take away a piece of this creature's life every day until this creature has no life. Over $2 million spent on this creature's security, millions on the defense, and millions going forward. Stop spending millions of taxpayer dollars on this killer. Put this creature in general population where it is afforded no additional protections, and issue punishment like no other. Forbid TV, internet, mail, phone calls, visitation, and education. Let this creature be erased from society, never to be heard from again. Let him wear a shock collar like the animal he is. Most of all, and under absolutely no circumstances, should this animal ever be given an opportunity for parole. No matter who presides over the matter, let this be the final determination, one which shall stand and one that can never be overturned. Send a clear message to our society that mass murder cannot and will not be tolerated. And to all the media outlets, I ask once again, no notoriety. Block out this creature's face and this creature's name. Call this creature what it is, a mass murderer, a killer, an animal. Thank you.
Samantha Fuentes.
Good afternoon, Samantha. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. You can put your hand down. Please state your full name for the record.
Samantha Fuentes.
Ms. Fuentes, as a victim in this case, would you like to give a statement?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
My name is Sam Fuentes. You might not remember me, but in high school, We walked the same hallways. You knew my friends. I knew where you sat at lunch. Hey, we were even both in a JROTC together. We were still children back then. I was still a child when I saw you standing at the window, peering into my Holocaust Studies class, holding your AR-15 that had swastikas ironically scratched into it. I was still a child after I watched you kill 2 of my friends. I was still a child when you shot me with your gun. You shot me in the leg, and if you looked me in the face like I'm looking you right now, you would see the scars on it from the hot shrapnel that was lodged into it. Do you remember? After you sprayed my classroom with bullets, standing in the dorm frame, peering into the work you've done? Do you remember my little battered, bloody face looking back at you? I could have sworn we locked eyes. This is only the beginning of how you ruined my life and many others. It's not the physical suffering. It's not just that you killed and injured a total of 34 people. It's the fact that I'll have to live with the aftermath of this for the rest of my life. I'll always have PTSD, depression, anxiety, suicidal ideations. Speaking of suicide, 3 students killed themselves because of what you did. Now, to speak quite frankly, not only do I want to kill myself sometimes, I live with constant fear that someone exactly like you will finish off the job you failed to do by not killing me. You gave me and many others a lifetime of trauma, pain, and suffering, long after you committed this crime, and for what? You are nobody now. You are not special. You have no longer the power anymore. You will step away from this, and you will have the most unremarkable, pathetic existence, one in which I only pray that you suffer. I remember the person you were. I remember how you terrorized and threatened and fought my friends, even after many of them made efforts to get to know you better. I remember how enthusiastic you were to incite violence and spread your racist hate speech publicly. I could have saved all of us 4.5 years. So here it is. You were a hateful bigot with an AR-15 and a God complex. You still are, minus the gun. You might have everyone else fooled, but not me, because this is personal. Racism is not a mental illness. Perfectly planned and articulated manifestos and plans are not characteristics of the sickly or the mentally unhinged. You are not this helpful, vulnerable, mentally ill adult the defense tried to paint you as, and you certainly do not deserve any sympathy or pity from me or anyone in this courtroom. You had circumstances that placed you at odds with the world. Yet instead of trying to solve your problems, you threw a tantrum of lethal and tremendous size. Like a pathetic, entitled child, you made the message clear that you lack the competency to make any decisions except those that resort to violence. I assure you, you will not be famous for this. I assure you that our people will be accounted for, they'll grow and heal despite you. I assure you that I will be excitedly anticipating your demise. And I will assure you that you will remember my face, and it will make you sick. You have no power anymore. You have no future. You have nothing. I'll get to walk out of this courthouse without cuffs and go home. You will not. The people that you kill will have a legacy much more important than you. And the people who nearly killed will live their lives, though with much difficulty, with a compassion and a dignity in ways you will only dream. Without your stupid gun, you are nothing. My name is Sam Fuentes, and you will not forget me. I'll never forgive or forget what you've done. And to say I won't be angry for the rest of my life would be a lie, even though I know that's exactly what you want. Though I'm angry about this verdict and believe you do not deserve to share the same earth as the rest of us, unlike you, in a state of great adversity, I can proudly say I'll never stoop as low as you will. And as you did. I'll never take my anger, pain, and suffering out on others because I am stronger than you. This entire community that stands behind me is stronger than you, and we are stronger than the hate that you give. My name is Sam Fuentes. You will not forget me. You will not forget us, not until the last day that you breathe.
You want to take a break?
Yes, please.
All right, we're going to be in recess for 10 minutes. Okay, the lawyers are present. The defendant is present. We are back in session. State, when you're ready, you may call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
The state would call Tavika Collins to give a statement on behalf of Mrs. April Centrup.
Okay. Good morning. Good afternoon. Excuse me. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Would you please state your full name and spell your last name for the record, and then state the name of the person that you're giving the statement for?
Yes,
Thank you.
Tavika Collins, Collins, and I'm reading on behalf of April Centrup.
Thank you.
Would you please give a statement on behalf of Mrs. Centrup, the mother of Carmen Centrup?
Yes.
Thank you.
This trial has made it clear to me that we need better laws. Committing a mass shooting should be an automatic death sentence, and I hope a law like this can be passed in the next legislative session. I also hope that the legislator will reinstate a simple majority vote to the death penalty, as the law was written previously. I know that this trial, the verdict, and wanting to hold people accountable does not bring Carmen back, but I feel that Carmen deserved better. Carmen was a bright and caring daughter. I miss her every day. I miss her smile and beautiful face. I miss our talks and her silly jokes. I miss watching her wanting to do everything her older brother would do, trying to be a role model for her younger sister. I miss seeing how she would tackle problems, playing her violin for orchestra, concerts, or talking in front of a large group. Even though she had stage fright, I miss hearing her challenge herself and her friends to see who would get the highest test grade in class. I miss us watching movies and TV shows together, such as Marvel or This Is Us. I miss us singing country songs together in the car with our at-home karaoke. I miss going to concerts with her. Our last concert together was Fall Out Boy. I miss her texts and phone calls, usually to update me on what she was doing after school or where she was driving. I miss her telling us about her day at the dinner table. I miss her sharing her PowerPoints about upcoming vacations or plans for the future. I miss her playing her piano, filling our home with classical music or songs from Adele and Coldplay. I miss her singing in church. I miss us going to musicals, ballets, and museums together. I miss her complaining about how hot the beach was. I miss seeing her check out 10 books at a time from the local library and aiming to get some reading reward each summer. I miss her hugs before bed. I miss her breaking into fake Russian or British accents in the middle of telling us a story. I miss seeing her with her friends dress up at Halloween. I miss how excited she was seeing gifts from Santa on Christmas. I miss seeing her play with her siblings and cousins growing up. I miss seeing her plan events at church with the youth group, like the Shrove Tuesday pancake dinner, which was the last meal and night we spent together. I miss her laughs and silly faces. I even miss her eye rolls. She deserved to live out her dreams, go to prom, graduate high school, go to college and become a medical researcher and find a cure for ALS. Get married, have a family, live in Germany, and be happy. That vile monster took all of that away. He deprived the world from seeing Carmen make this world a better place. In the end, I know the evil murderer didn't show mercy to Carmen, nor did he think about the 17 lives taken when committing his acts of hate and violence. At his guilty plea, the killer said, "I believe it's your decision to decide where I go and whether I live or die, not the jury's. I believe it was your decision." If only that is how our court system worked, but it doesn't. The decision instead was made by the jury. I hope they would sentence him to death. The same fate as Carmen, Alana, Alyssa, Alex, Kara, Meadow, Helena, Gina, Nick, Martine, Luke, Jamie, Joaquin, Peter, Chris, Scott, and Aaron. Sincerely, April Centrup.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
You may.
Sorry. My apologies. I completely Read backwards. Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. I want to thank the prosecution for their hard work in this case. I feel they tried with all their might to get our families justice for the deaths of our loved ones. I also want to thank the judge for allowing us to speak directly to the court. My daughter Carmen and her 16 others were hunted down and brutally murdered at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School on February 14, 2018, by the cold and calculated murderer that sits in this courtroom. Instead of sentencing the shooter to death, members of this jury decided to sentence him to life without parole, a life where he can read his fan mail, talk with visitors, enjoy the Florida sunshine, eat meals prepared for him, and watch TV. His life spared for taking the lives of 17 innocent souls, a decision I do not agree with or understand. These last 4.5 years, I have learned the hard way that having your child murdered is excruciating and gut-wrenching, but so is the process in finding justice and some level of accountability. A small amount of justice could have come the day of the shooting if one of the Broward Sheriff's officers would have rushed into the building and confronted the shooter. He may have killed himself or been killed, saving our families the heartache of having this trial in the first place. Or even prior to the shooting, others like the school and FBI could have taken effective action to stop the killer from easily shooting Carmen to death in her AP psychology class. But none of those things happened, so I was hoping that this trial and the jury's verdict of a death sentence would provide some level of accountability for the murderer. Although one death sentence does not even come close to the 17 homicides and 17 attempted homicides he committed. I am still shocked at how members of this jury could decide a life sentence for someone whose life goal was to harm and kill others. For years, he plotted and told others that he wanted to get a gun, dreamed of blood and violence, and researched other school shootings. In the months prior, he posted on social media that he wanted to be a school shooter and gather his arsenal. In the weeks prior, he developed a shooting playlist and studied a map of the school. Days prior, he created videos saying that he was aiming for a high body count and wanting to be remembered. And then, to further inflict pain, he chose to commit his acts of hate on Valentine's Day, so that this holiday would never be about love, but of love taken. Rather than trying to build a life for himself, this heinous individual chose to take the lives of others. And instead of sentencing this wicked murderer to death, the same sentence he gave Carmen and his other victims, members of this jury decided in less than 24 hours to give the adult who committed the deadliest high school shooting ever a life sentence, ultimately sending a message to other potential mass shooters that their life might be spared no matter how many other lives they take. This sentence also shines a spotlight on the disparity of our so-called justice system, where others who murder fewer people receive a death sentence. It is clear a few members of this jury value Carmen's life and the lives of 16 others less than the shooters. It is also clear that they do not value the lives of future victims that will come about because of their decision as well. And then it proceeds to what I read previously.
Thank you.
About that.
Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Calling Juan Vicente to give a statement on behalf of Philip Centrup.
Good afternoon, sir. Would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir. You can put your hand down. Would you please do as the lady before you just did, where you state your name and spell it, and then state the name of the person that you're speaking on behalf, please?
Okay. Juan Vicente, Vicente, and I'm speaking on behalf of Philip Centrup.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mr. Vicente, do you have a statement on behalf of Philip Centrup regarding his daughter, Carmen?
I do.
Would you please give it?
Good afternoon. I would like to thank the court for the opportunity to provide testimony on behalf of my beloved daughter, Carmen. My daughter, Carmen, was amazing. I was often in awe of all she had accomplished in her short time. To say she was brilliant is like saying the sun is bright. Both are true, but neither truly capture their magnitude. Carmen taught herself to read at the age of 3 by overhearing my wife teach her older brother. She was a straight A student from her first grade until she died, and she accelerated through school to be a 16-year-old senior. She was a gifted musician and filled our house and our lives with beautiful music, especially on her beloved piano. She was witty and funny and could have our family crying around the dinner table from laughing so hard. She was selfless and glad to offer help to those who needed it. Carmen was president of her youth church group, raising money for those in need and volunteering at a homeless shelter. Carmen was loyal and empathetic, a close friend to many. Often quite shy when she was young, Carmen was bursting forth from her cocoon and had become adventurous and courageous. She had become comfortable speaking in public, adulting on her own, and even driving herself to Broward College to take German so she could adventure overseas to go to medical school. She was brave and fiercely determined. Carmen never needed advice on how to get something done. She already knew at her young age that she was unstoppable. All she had to do was just get started. Carmen was all those things and much more. The only thing that could stop Carmen were bullets fired from the rifle of a pathetic and vile coward. As amazing and loved as Carmen was, she has been failed by every institution in our country that should have been protecting her. The FBI, the sheriff's office, the school district, and the mental health system all failed Carmen. The FBI had multiple tips the murderer was going to commit mass murder and did nothing. The mental system showed for the murderer alone, providing services but never actually trying to help. The school district failed on multiple levels, from the school's principal who testified the security of his school was not his responsibility, to the chief of student performance and accountability who days after Carmen's murder justified unlocked doors and open gates at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas by saying it was a common practice across the school district, to the school safety specialist who saw the murderer enter the school with a gun and ran away or hid in a closet, but never called a call red on the radio. Carmen was failed by the coward Brower, who the Broward Sheriff Office led an MSC to retire in place, instead of dealing with his poor performance. But he was not alone. She was failed by the 7 other BSO officers who stood around while children and teachers were murdered, none having the courage to do what was right and needed. And finally, she has been failed by our legal system, for there is no justice for Carmen and the 16 other murder victims. Failed by individuals whose hubris value the life of a depraved, premeditating, and unrepentant mass murderer over the lives of the 17 remarkable people. Philip Centrup. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
State would call Victoria Gonzalez.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You can put your hand down. Please state your full name for the record.
Victoria Gonzalez, Gonzalez.
Thank you. State whenever you're ready.
Ms. Gonzalez, are you here today to give a statement regarding Joaquin Oliver?
Yes.
Would you please do so?
Before I open this, I am wearing Joaquin's t-shirt that he wore the night before you killed him. And it says, if you can't read Spanish, it says, you with bullets, I with balls. And I just want to start with that. This is my protection. This is Joaquin with me. Crazy enough, he knew what was coming. Yeah.
I don't know if you remember me, but we did have a class together the year before hell broke loose. I remember where you sat, in the row next to me, a couple seats behind me, and I remember Mr. Guard going around the room, and every day we'd give a different answer from the homework the night before. He wanted to make sure who had it. I remember every day when he would get to you, I was crossing my fingers under my desk, thinking, man, I hope he has it today. Man, I hope he's doing something good for himself. Man, I hope that he's succeeding. I was rooting for you. Silently, in my desk, you had no idea who I was, and I was rooting for you because I felt like you needed someone or you needed something, and I could feel that, you know. I felt how alone you might have felt, maybe. Maybe I'm wrong. My softness has been my protection, and maybe it's hurt me, but I've empathized with you, and I've blamed society for creating the hatred in you, and I can't anymore. So I stand here to say that I do blame you. Not you alone, but definitely you. Definitely. A lot of people failed. After that class, every single day I met Joaquin after school. And I thought about you, and I didn't even know you, and I was like thinking about how you could have been suffering. Little did I know, it was just foreshadowing. But now I'm very alone, and I'm very isolated, and I can't make friends, and I can't build relationships because I'm looking over my shoulder. Even emotionally, I can't feel safe. I can't trust people to take care of me. I'm alone all the time. I can't let someone love me. I ask for others to understand this pain. But how? How can anyone understand this pain? Why do I understand this pain? Why? Because of you. How can someone love a person who's afraid of life? That's how I feel. But Joaquin loved me for all of my flaws, for everything. He saw the capacity to grow. He saw that my brokenness made me whole, if that will make sense. He saw light shining through the cracks. But nobody else from then forward is allowed to love me like that. I won't let them. I don't have friends. I don't make them. Maybe people think that we're friends, but I don't feel safe. And that's because of you. But I do want to say, I wish that you met Joaquin. I wish that you met Joaquin, because he would have been your friend. He would have extended a hand to you. He would have loved you. And I say that, and whoever's going to be upset with me is going to be upset with me, but he would have loved you as a human being, because you are a human being, and I'm going to say that. And I know a lot of people won't say that, but you are a real-life human being standing right in front of me. You're not some character out of a book, like a lot of people like to think that this is a fantasy, but you're a real person. And I'm sorry that you never saw the love that the world is capable of giving. That's something I've wanted to say to you from the day that this happened. Because the most painful part of this is knowing that the world holds so much hatred that can be funneled into one human being. Like, there is so much hate in your body. And I'm sorry for that. I would have wished you the love that I experienced before you led me to the experience of sitting in this courtroom and listening to a medical examiner tell me that my best friend's head was only held together by the skin of his scalp after you were done with him. That it was like a cherry bomb, quoted, like a cherry bomb went off in his skull. And I will live with that. And you will live with that in a different way. And I won't have to worry if you celebrate it or whatever you do with it. But the point is, I would have wished love for you. I would have. And I want to, because that's who I am, but I can't. And I'm sorry that your heart knows nothing of warmth. I would have wished that for you, and I will say that again. My justice does not lie in knowing if you live or if you die. My justice lives in knowing that I loved, because I experienced a love that a lot of people go their whole lifetimes without experiencing. Joaquin loved me entirely with his whole being, and I choose love. So in the end, I think that I win. I think that I win because I will continue my life honoring something that people believe is a fairy tale. And it's not. This whole thing is so real life. The love that Joaquin gifted me will last my lifetime. It will last many lifetimes. And I'm proud to stand here and say that. And you showed me the importance of love. And that I need to celebrate it. And that I need to preach it. And that I need to wake up every day and make someone smile. So that they don't go through the world feeling like you did or you do. I don't wish that for anyone. And I wish that it didn't bring you to what you did. I wish that you had more love in your heart. And I want to say that. No matter who will hate me for it. I wish that you had love in your heart. I wish that. And on behalf of Joaquin, you may have taken my body, and for that, fuck you. But you cannot take my love. And that is all I have to say.
Thank you.
Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Jennifer and Fred Guttenberg.
Mr. and Mrs. Gutenberg, are you both going to be speaking?
Yes.
Okay, would you both please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. You can both put your hands down, and if you would each state your full name for the record.
Jennifer Guttenberg, Guttenberg.
Thank you.
And Fred Guttenberg, same spelling, Guttenberg.
Thank you. Nice to see you both.
Mrs. Guttenberg, would you like to say something on behalf of your daughter, Jamie?
Yes, I would.
Please go ahead.
So yesterday, I put out a message that I wasn't going to speak. But after yesterday's events, I changed my mind. First, I want to thank you, Judge, for attempting to keep this courtroom from being a circus. The state attorneys for all the hard work that they've done for way too many years. The victims' advocates in Eagles Haven who have supported us every single day, beyond imagination, honestly. So, you shouldn't be sitting there with a mask on your face. It's disrespectful to be hiding your expressions under your mask when we as the families are sitting here talking to you. Lowered down in your seat, hunched over, trying to make yourself look innocent when you're not, because you admitted what you did and everybody knows what you did. I felt the need today to remind this court and this entire country who are the important people here. And that's Jamie, my daughter, and the other 16 victims that were murdered, as well as the 17 that were injured, and countless thousands of mentally injured people from this massacre. They suffered the unimaginable. And as a reminder, there's no question about what happened. Guilt was admitted. I won't take the time to talk about you, because as far as I'm concerned, you deserve zero acknowledgement. I need only to speak about the families who have endured this horror of what you did to our loved ones. Yesterday, the elected public defender said that nobody had to endure what this defense had to endure. Let me just tell everybody what our families have had to endure. For those of you who don't know, there were many rules and restrictions for our families. We were not to wear colors like orange for my daughter, or advertising types of clothing or gear related to our loved ones. We weren't to have major reactions or facial expressions from what was being said. We had to be quiet. We didn't make a peep. We couldn't make any verbal sounds. We couldn't use our cell phones in the courtroom, even though the attorneys, the press, and everyone else could use theirs. We weren't to be speaking outside of this courtroom because we were unaware of where jurors might be and may run into somebody. The list goes on and on. And as a reminder, Mr. Weeks, and the rest of the defense attorneys, your client murdered our loved ones in cold blood, hunted them down, shot them over and over until he knew he accomplished his goal and left them for dead with no remorse. In fact, he left amongst the other students and stopped for a Slurpee because he was thirsty after his rampage. I feel our families need to be recognized. Whether in the courtroom or watching from elsewhere, we sat through this entire trial respectfully. We tried not to react while videos of our loved ones were being shown to the jury. We tried not to react when the medical examiner described their horrific injuries. We tried not to react as we were verbally taken through the crime scene, step by step. Miss McNeil waved her hand at us during her closing arguments, like this, talking about these people, and no matter what the verdict is, that these people will always be suffering from what happened. It was disrespectful, and I'd like to tell you about these people. We are sad, hurt, lonely, empty, and horrified. Yet we are strong, caring, and respectful. Each of us has done our share to try to do positive things every day, regardless of how our lives have been ruined. We have endured the unthinkable and the nonsense of this trial, including the blatant disrespect of this defense team, and now Mr. Weeks. This is a club that nobody wants to be in, but I'm glad that my club is at least with these amazing people. Let me remind everyone again, as other people have, who's important here. Jamie Guttenberg, my beautiful daughter, Nicholas Dworet, Luke Hoyer, Joaquin Oliver, Gina Montalto, Elena Petty, Kara Loughran, Meadow Pollock, Alex Schachter, Peter Wang, Martin Duque, Carmen Centrup, Helena Ramsey, Alyssa Al-Hadef, Chris Hickson, Scott Beagle, and Aaron Feiss. Along with the 17 injured and thousands of others affected, I never want to hear the killer's name again. Let us remember the victims and their legacy. My daughter is Jamie Guttenberg. She is forever 14, and she is amazing still. And that's what I want people to remember.
I only decided about 10 a.m. this morning that I was going to do this, so I scribbled down a few things. I may ramble on a bit. If I do, I apologize. I see you're still needing to do your thing, so.
Mr. Guttenberg, would you like to say something on behalf of your daughter, Jamie?
Yes, I would.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. First, Your Honor, thank you. We've been at this now for almost over 4.5 years. It's the first time I've actually had this chance to address you directly, which is, I guess, the way this process is supposed to work. I will be honest with you, for the better part of the 4.5 years, and they can attest to this, I've probably been angry at you more often than not. because I didn't know the process. And every time there was a ruling that I felt wasn't good for the prosecution, I got annoyed. Every time I saw these things coming up from the defense that took up time, that delayed us, that are the reason we're now 4.5 years out, I got annoyed. And I kept on saying to them, why can't the judge do more? Why can't the judge do more? And I need to say to everyone here at this table, you are the most amazing group of people I've ever been connected to. And I thank you. Because your ability to make sure I understood every bit of it, to make sure that everything the judge was doing was to ensure there couldn't be a call for a mistrial. We heard that often. Or some kind of, should this have resulted in the death penalty, an appeal. You always helped me to understand it and to keep me engaged in the process in a way where we kept going forward together. But you see, for our families, that also meant doing it in silence. Because we couldn't go public. We couldn't complain. We couldn't act out. And so I want to thank you, because at the end of this process, you have been nothing but decent, fair, and firm. And I want you to know that. So I'm going to let everyone know something. Last week, I sat with you, Attorney Sachs, in his office. Watched the video of you. I'm glad I get to see your face right now. Of you killing my daughter for the very first time. You see, all those video evidence that was shown in this courtroom, we didn't see it. Maybe that was to protect us, to protect the public. We didn't see it. But heading into this week, I was searching for answers, for clarity. And I sat with Attorney Sachs, and I watched you kill my daughter on video. And unfortunately, I saw you killing many of the others as well. I saw you enjoying it. And I saw also what I expected of my daughter, who was the toughest human being on the face of the earth, running for her life down the hallway. And the thing is, my daughter made it to within 1 second of being alive. She actually made it into the stairwell. You shot her with a single shot. You severed her spinal cord, her chest filled with blood, in the stairwell. You did that. You did that to the other 16 as well. After I sat with Mike, I did what I often do. I went to the cemetery, looking for guidance from Jamie, for strength. And I walked away from the cemetery realizing, no matter the outcome of the verdict, nothing changed. Jamie's still at the cemetery. Nothing changed. I'm still a dad who spent every day dreaming of walking his daughter down the aisle, who now will have to endure a lifetime of the reality that I won't get to walk my daughter down the aisle. There are, actually by a show of hands, anyone else in this room, because of him, going to have to endure not watching people they love get married? I am a person who has to endure the fact that my daughter is not in the college of her dreams because of you. Out of curiosity, does anyone else in this room have to endure the fact that their loved ones aren't in college? Because of you, I've had to endure spending Father's Day. My wife has had to endure spending Mother's Day. We've had to endure spending our time for birthdays at a cemetery. Anyone else, because of him, have to endure those things? Yeah. Anyone who claims that they had to endure anything close to what we endure, you may want to rethink your language and your choice of words just a bit. I look at you sitting there right now, looking the way you should have looked through the entire trial, like a convicted murderer, in your prison outfit, shackled. It is still incomprehensible to me that when we went through the penalty phase of this trial, which you were already a convicted murderer for, that you were able to sit there looking like Howdy Doody, in whatever outfit they felt like putting you in for the day, your hairstyle, your mask on, your seat really low like a little boy, faking out the jury as to who you really are. We endured months of watching that show. It was BS. But you put on a great show, I'll tell you that. You did your job. You got him from not getting the death penalty. You all can't understand the pain that we go through. But what I will say is that statement yesterday, I actually believe it, that Public Defender Weeks believed it. I actually think you all believe it, and you've endured something worse than us, which is why you've behaved the way you have with us. Months we've been here. Not a single one of you has actually ever even looked in our direction, made an effort to say, we're sorry for your loss, ever. Now, I understand you had a job to do defending the indefensible, defending a mass murderer of 17 people. I understand that was hard, and you were doing your job as you were required to do. But I'm not sure anywhere along the way there was a requirement that you give up your humanity and you give up your decency, but you did. That was a choice you made. I got your email apologizing for the middle finger stunt. I have it, okay? Laughing with him as you're doing it. And the crazy thing is, I've reread it multiple times. You actually didn't apologize to us. You apologized that you didn't know the camera was on while you were doing that you got caught. That's what we've had to endure, okay? Because we've always seen you all turning this into that. But again, you didn't get the death penalty. You did your job. I hope you're all proud of yourselves. You know, I believe in the Ringo Starr philosophy of life, peace and love. I do. So with that, I need to address some of the other comments from Mr. Weeks yesterday, suggesting that our families were inciting violence, comparing it to what happened to Speaker Pelosi. When that happened yesterday, my wife, I started screaming in the house. So what I need to let you all know, all of our families, because of what you did, I didn't know them before. I knew nothing about them. We've all got to know each other. And every single one of these families, because of what you did, is doing amazing things in this country today in the name of safety, in the name of saving lives, in the name of making sure our schools are safer, our streets are safer. I travel this country. I haven't worked since what you did. A real job anyway. I travel the country going to harass politicians to make sure we can do more to reduce gun violence. That's what I do now. And along that path, since Mr. Weeks brought up the name Speaker Pelosi yesterday, implying we're trying to incite some kind of violence. Here's the crazy thing. Because of what I do, I actually know Speaker Pelosi. I know her well. And anyone who follows my story knows she's a really important person to me in my life. And so I don't know if Public Defender Weeks is in the room or not. But for him to have trivialized and minimized that real act of violence to make a moronic, stupid point, shame. That's all I can say, shame. I'm going to end with this. For almost 5 years, we've been silent. We were silent through this trial. We sat here, we held it in. But I'm going to share something personal. On the day of the medical examiner visits where they discussed Jamie, I need you all to know, because this gets back to the word endure, what we endure, that while I was sitting there, I was having chest pains and shortness of breath. And you want to know, I didn't say a word, because I didn't want to hear you call to the judge, because it happened in front of the jury, and ask for a mistrial. And so I sat there with chest pains. And the second the medical examiner finished talking about my daughter, my wife immediately got me out of the room. And I ended up with weeks of testing from a cardiologist, and thankfully I am okay. I have a broken heart, but I am okay. But the need to sit here silently while you all did what you did, while you had a neighbor who you put on this little show running around the room, who didn't really know him. He lived in a house behind a house across the street, met him once in person. He ended up under cross-examination acknowledging that. You actually spoke about the neighbor in your closing statement, but the neighbor didn't actually know him. Okay? We watched this. We endured this. And yeah, it got to be too much at times that I developed a health issue over it. But again, I am okay. And I'm going to be okay. And I am going to go forward with my wife. And we are going to continue to build our foundation, Orange Ribbons for Jamie. And everyone else back there, they're going to continue to build their amazing foundations, doing all the amazing work that they do. Just so you know, because of you, our foundation is starting a new program called Paws of Love. We're going to be providing emotional support dogs to victims of gun violence. So the next time somebody does what you did, we'll be there for them. That's who we are. To suggest for 1 second that we would be the kinds of people, or anyone back there would be the kinds of people who would incite violence, y'all should be ashamed of yourselves. But you said it. Can't take it back now. So I'm going to leave it here. I'm only looking to see 2 more things happen today. One will be your formal sentencing of him. And the other one, I want to see Gordon Weeks resign before the end of the day today. Thank you.
Ms. McCann, if you need a few minutes, you can let me know. We can take a recess or we can continue, whatever is the preference of the witnesses.
I think we can go forward, Your Honor.
Okay.
And that would be to have Ms. Linda Schulman, please. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Michael Schulman.
Good afternoon, sir. It's nice to see you.
Good morning.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Will you please state your full name for the record?
Michael Schulman, Schulman. May it please the court, I have been a practicing attorney in New York for 45 years. I speak to you today both as Scott's dad and as an attorney. I address the prosecution. You did not lose this case. Thank you, Mike, Carolyn, Jeff, Nicole, Stephen, and Aaron, and the entire team of victim advocates and everyone who stood by us for the last 4.5 years. Your tireless dedication to trying to obtain justice for our murdered loved ones. You put on a marvelous case. You did not let us down. Again, you did not let us down. We are disappointed in the verdict, not you. Understand that. We are disappointed in the verdict, but not you. Judge Scherer, I have been before many, many judges in my 45 years as an attorney. You have presided over the most notorious and heinous case, probably in the history of Florida jurisprudence. With the eyes of all of Florida and most of the country on you, I commend you for your poise, knowledge of the law, and command of your courtroom, no matter how many times people tried to bait you. As for the defense, you did not win, and you did not win. The system failed us, okay? Not the prosecution, not the court. 12 people voted that your crime was heinous, calculated, premeditated, and cold-blooded. That's enough for me. They recognize the type of person, I take that back, the type of animal that you are. Calling you a person demeans everyone else here. I will not waste my time going to chapter and verse of all the inappropriate actions of defense counsel. I agree with everything Max Schachter said. I agree with everything Patricia Alba said. Zealous representation of the confessed murderer does not mean flipping the bird when you think the cameras are not on you. This is simply not professional. My wife and I sat in the courtroom when you, Mr. Weeks, I don't know if you're here, okay, but you should be embarrassed if you are, had the balls to say on the record with the families of those murdered sitting in the courtroom that no one has endured what he, and meaning the defense, has endured. Are you freaking kidding me? I'm not going to repeat what Fred Guttenberg said, because he said it so eloquently. Ask me if I feel sorry for Mr. Wheeler or Ms. McNeil, who had such thin skins that they objected during this proceeding over what was said. No one threatened any of your families. Did you see the gun? Did you see the film? Did you see the picture of that piece of shit pointed at my son? Did you see him going down? That's a threat. Words that were said yesterday by those people were not threats to you. Grow a set of, thicken your skin. You are no better than he is if you take offense to that. This man, this animal, this piece of shit, this bastard took the lives of 17 people. You have a right to defend him. You have no right to demean the people who lost somebody. None. If I had done 1/10 of what you did during this entire proceeding, I would have either been disbarred, brought up on charges, lost my license. But no, you did what you had to do because you were defending the indefensible. You've all had your 15 minutes of fame. Every one of you. It's done. You're done. I never want to hear your name. I never want to see your face ever again. Our family sat in silence, like Fred just said. We had to endure listening to the testimony over and over again. 17 medical examiners testified about what your bullets did to our children's bodies. And you sat there with the same freaking expression you have now. None. Cold, no emotion, no remorse. What type of animal are you? We avoided all social media. We avoided saying anything to the press. We sat here and endured. We were afraid, as Fred said, of a mistrial because every time anything came up, the first thing you heard is mistrial, mistrial, mistrial. Mr. Weeks, how do you live with yourself for making such an indecent, insensitive, and unprofessional statement like you did yesterday? No one had to endure what your attorneys had to endure. I'm sorry, but I don't believe any of your attorneys or our loved ones were murdered by the bastard your office is representing. If I had done half of what you did, I would have been held in contempt of court because no judge would allow that. And for that, I credit the judge because she knew by doing that, she could have a mistrial immediately. I admire her jurisprudence. I admire the way she controlled this courtroom in spite of everything you people did. Now, I want to tell you why I'm here. On February 13th, 2018. I was home in bed with the flu. My son Scott called me to see how I was doing. Said, not so well. He said, don't worry, I'll speak to you tomorrow. That never happened. But let me tell you more about February 14th. February 14th is also our daughter Melissa's birthday. Do you now know people don't want to call her on her birthday because they don't know what to say to her? They don't know whether to say happy birthday or I'm sorry. 2 days later, we were sitting in my mother-in-law's home in Palm Beach Gardens, February 16th. We were sitting with a funeral director. That's my birthday. My birthday memory is sitting at a table planning my son's funeral because of you. Know how we got down here? We live in New York. I was watching TV, CNN. I was sick. They report a mass shooting in a city, town, school in Florida. Parkland, Florida. What do I know about Parkland, Florida? Scott was teaching. What do I know? I called my wife. I said, Linda, what's the name of the school that Scott teaches at? And she said, I don't know, something with 3 names. We found out it was Marbury Stoneman Douglas. We heard on the news that a geography teacher was shot. Couldn't get a plane down here. There were no commercial flights down. We had to charter our own jet to fly us down here and sit in the Marriott, the command center, for hours, not knowing what happened to our son. We sat there with all these people, some of them crying, some of them scared, not knowing what the hell had happened to their loved ones. You talk about the victims. Yes, Scott was a victim. There were 16 other victims who were killed. There were 17 other victims who were shot. There are thousands of people in Parkland and all over the world, okay, who were affected by what happened here. Scott was a camp counselor. For 28 years, he was a camp counselor. When Scott was murdered, we went to the arrange his funeral, and the rabbi said to us, how many people do you expect here today? We said, well, we're not from Florida. I don't know, maybe 100? There were 1,000 people in the room. But not only that, the rabbi said he's been getting calls for us to live stream his funeral. 500,000 people watched that funeral. So don't tell me your life is worth more than his. Ever. Let me tell you about Scott a little bit. See on my sleeve? Which sleeve is it? Just Run Faster. Okay? Scott was the cross-country coach at Stoneman Douglas. After one meet, his students were very, very upset that they lost the meet by a few points or minutes. I don't know how they calculate that anymore. I don't really care anymore. And he looked at us, they all came to him, all upset. What do we do, coach? What do we do? He didn't say, well, you were reacting to this, you would do that. He just said, looked at them square in the face, said, just run faster. That's the phrase used by all of the MSD cross-country teams. Now, just run faster. That's how he treated his students. That's how he treated his team. He was honest with his team when he got the job at Marbury Stoneman. He said, I know nothing about cross-country coaching, but if you teach me about cross-country coaching, I'll teach you about life. And he did. And know what he did? 4 or 5 days after the shooting, there was a memorial concert at one of the facilities here in the city. We sat there, someone pointed us out, and a nice Irish grandmother with the thickest brogue accent I've ever heard in my entire life. She needed to come with a translator, that's how thick it was. Tapped my wife on the shoulder and said, I love your son, but I never met him. Okay, I'll bite. She said he gave her her granddaughter an assignment. Call somebody who you don't know that well, from another country, who grew up in another country, and find out all about that country and what they lived through. She called her grandmother. They stayed on the phone for hours. The grandmother said, up until that point, I spoke to my granddaughter maybe twice a year. Now it's twice a week. You destroyed that. You animal destroyed that. You took my son away and a teacher away that loved his children. Someone you never met. You never had anything to do with. That's what you did. You're a bastard. You're a freaking animal. One more little story. I apologize, Your Honor.
Okay.
Scott volunteered to go to South Africa. He spent 2 months in South Africa, teaching students in South Africa. He came back from South Africa, just like this. His mother said to him, gosh, the airline lost your luggage, because that's what a mother would think. She said, Scott went, no, Mom, that was the hand. Mom, when I was in South Africa, those children used to beg to get into the classroom. He said, here in New York, they pray for snow days. In South Africa, they don't have shoes. In New York, they look to see who has the best Nikes. I left all my stuff. That's what you destroyed. That is what you killed. That's the spirit that you don't have and never had. With that blank freaking stare on your face. Okay, you should only rot in hell. You fired 139 rounds of ammunition on that day. 139. You could have stopped at any freaking time. After the first freaking bullet, you could say, oh my God, what am I doing? But you didn't. You continued to fire. And after the first floor, you said, what the hell am I doing? No, you had to go to the second floor. You had to go to the third floor. You had to walk past Jamie Guttenberg's body like she was a piece of trash on the floor. That's what you did. You show no remorse. You have no redeeming values. You're a coward. You're a freaking coward. You dressed up to blend in with the people you terrified that day. So don't tell me you had no planning abilities. You planned the whole thing out very, very well. The fact that I have to share my world with you is disgusting. The fact that I have to breathe the same air you breathe is reprehensible. I can't wait till that ends. Your sentencing today does not end the book. This chapter is done. But what we're missing is the epilogue. And for me, I look forward to reading that epilogue. What will happen to you in jail? You'll be passed around like an inanimate object. Your protection will be paid for by your commissary and probably with your body. You'll be someone's bitch, and you deserve it. Passed around from group to group until you get tired of it. You will be a commodity, traded like bubblegum, cigarettes, drugs, or candy. And one last point. Well, maybe not last point. My 70th birthday is February 2024. My hope, my prayer for my birthday present is to get word that you are dead. That the justice system was done in jail. That the prisoners that you and inmates that you have to associate with executed the judgment that this court can't. And I hope that it's the most painful judgment ever. Hope that when your final death comes, you have the same fear, the same agony as the 16 people you killed and my son. Hope that your death is slow and agonizing, because it won't be like a state execution. Prison justice is a bitch. When your fellow inmates execute the death penalty that you deserve, they will do so in such a cold, calculated, heinous, painful manner that you'll be wishing that the state of Florida had executed you in the compassionate way they must by law. Finally, I have one request, Your Honor. I'm sorry. I just want to say one more thing. In spite of you, in spite of that cold stare, in spite of that ice water bullshit that runs through your veins, in the fact that you have no remorse, no feelings for anything or anybody, we will survive. These 17 families and all the victims of your heinous crime will survive. We will go on, we will make the best of our lives, and we will deal with the daily grief, pain, and anger that we feel every day. I have to learn to live with the pain you caused to my entire family. You are the worst kind of animal. Contrary to the defense, one of the mitigating factors were you are a human being. Trust me, you are not. You are the lowest form of pond scum, and I apologize to pond scum for equating you with them. You are a spineless and soulless monster. My son Scott was a human being. He still is. Something you will never be and never were. He has a soul, he was kind, he has a character, and he cared for his fellow human beings, something you never did. Now one last request, Your Honor. I apologize. I would like to make a formal request to you, or to whoever it has to be, on the record, to the Public Defender's Office. I'm requesting that under the Freedom of Information Act, that the Public Defender's Office make available to me within 30 days, including but not limited to the following documents: each invoice to experts, each billing statement for work done, each and every invoice for disbursements incurred for the representation of the shooter, the amount paid to each public defender, and the compensation to any persons who were compensated for representing the shooter. This day has been long coming. Didn't know how it'd feel right now. Don't feel any better because he's still breathing. The day he stops breathing, I will feel better. Thank you.
Mrs. Linda Beagle, Shulman.
Good afternoon. Is it Beagle or Shulman?
Beagle Shulman.
Okay. Good afternoon, Ms. Beagle Shulman. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You can put your hand down whenever you're ready.
Ms. Shulman, would you like to give a statement on behalf of your son, Scott Beagle?
Yes, thank you.
Please do.
It has been 1,723 days since you murdered my son, along with 16 other innocent students. My son Scott was the geography teacher and cross-country coach at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, which you heard all about from my husband. In spite of your desire to kill as many students as possible, Scott, realizing that you were in the school and on a killing rampage, he did what he had to in order to save the lives of as many students as he could as possible. He managed to save 31 students before you killed him. This is my son, Scott. I've had 15 days to ponder the jury's verdict, and I realized that the death penalty was way too easy for you. I learned that here in Florida, the average death penalty case takes 18 years from sentencing to execution. That means that I would probably be dead before you are executed. I will go forward knowing that you are going to a maximum security prison with other murderers, much tougher than you are. A prison where you will spend the rest of your miserable life having to look over your shoulder, worried about every single minute of your day, of your life, and scared out of your mind, fearful for someone to take you out. A prison where you will be other inmates' boy toy. A prison where your fellow prison inmates are just waiting to tear you apart, because from what I hear, child killers are highly frowned upon and hated in prison. You will look back at the time that you spent in the Broward County Jail and see it as it was a hotel compared to the prison where you are headed. As far as I'm concerned, real justice would be done if every family here were given a bullet and your AR-15, and we got to pick straws, and each one of us got to shoot one at a time at you, making sure that you felt every bit of it, and your fear continued to mount until the last family member who pulled that last straw had the privilege of making sure that they killed you. That's real justice for you. I wish for you prison justice, since that cannot happen. And I welcome the day that I am told that you've been tortured and taken out for your cold-blooded, premeditated, calculated, heinous murders, because you deserve no less. Your notoriety is over today. You will no longer be anything but a number here. And I can tell you, I have never uttered your name, and I never will. To me, you'll always be the confessed, convicted Parkland murderer. I have one last request for the media, and this is definitely something that I would really like to have you take to heart. All of the media, not just the people who are here, all the media. Do not give this animal the notoriety he craves. Out of respect for the 17 families whose loved ones were murdered by this animal, an animal that continues to show no remorse, please do not use his name in your reporting ever again. Please refer to him of who he is, the confessed, convicted Parkland mass murderer. Please bear with me for a little longer. Promise not like Mike, I promise.
Okay. It's okay.
To the state's trial attorneys, Michael Satz, Carolyn McCann, Jeff Marcus, Nicole Chiappone, Stephen Klinger, Aaron Sabitsky, as well as your entire staff, including the victims' advocates. When we first began this case, you answered all my questions, and I had so many questions. You explained to me that this is the perfect death penalty case because I was not aware of what the difference really was for the death penalty or life in prison without parole. Mr. Satz, you took the time and explained and promised me, you said, this is a very important case. The reason we go for the death penalty in this case is because you and your team wanted to make sure that it was not going to be just another mass shooting. You promised that the Parkland shooting case, every single one of our loved ones would be known by name, by face, who they were, their age. Nobody, if they ever heard Parkland again, would not know about every one of those loved ones that were murdered. You fulfilled your promise. For that, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. You kept your promise. The case that you all put on was flawless, okay? You proved every aggravating factor. Every one of you, from me, and I'm sure I speak for all the families, you were patient, you were supportive, you were kind, you were caring, you were in this with your hearts, you understood, you answered every single question, no matter what time in the middle of the night. We had all your cell phone numbers, okay? You became a family. You became a family to me, and you became a family to Michael. I cannot thank you enough. To you, Judge Shearer, thank you for handling this extraordinarily difficult trial in such a professional and compassionate manner. Thank you so much for everything that you've done. To everyone who can hear my voice or see me today, these are the names and faces I want you to remember. These are our loved ones who were murdered on February 14th, 2018. These are the innocent lives that we will remember and celebrate forever. Alyssa Alhadeff, 14. Martin Duque Anguiano, 14. Nicholas Dworet, 17. Aaron Feiss, 37. Jamie Guttenberg, 14. Chris Hickson, 49. Luke Hoyer, 15. Carol Loughran, 14. Gina Maltalto, 14. Joaquin Oliver, 17. Elena Petty, 14. Meadow Pollock, 18. Helena Ramsey, 17. Alex Schachter, 14. Carmen Centrup, 16. Peter Wang, 15. My irreplaceable son, Scott Beagle, 35, who I will honor, cherish, and love for every day of the rest of my life. Thank you.
Can we have a short break, Your Honor? Sure.
Are present. The defendant is present.
Judge, if you could just indulge us for a couple more minutes while the witnesses come back in from the Eagles Haven room, please.
Sure.
Thank you. Your Honor, everyone's here?
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
The state would next call Miss Andrea Gersey.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You can put your hand down. Please state your full name and spell your last name for the record.
Andrea Gersey, Ghersi.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Gersey, would you like to give a statement on behalf of your brother, Joaquin Oliver?
Yes.
Please do so.
Okay. So I wasn't going to say anything until yesterday's events. So I will start with this. To you, I would never, ever, ever sit down and write anything about you and take my time. So like Debbie Hickson said, you will cease to exist after today. I just hope that your fellow inmates take real nice and cozy care of you. Okay. So, I wasn't going to say anything today, but in light of yesterday's events, I decided I would not allow any of you to make us out to be the kind of people that resort to any kind of threats, especially threats towards children. No one in this courtroom has had to go through what we have had to go through. Statement by Gordon Weeks. What exactly have you had to go through? Did you have to sit here for the past few months and listen to medical experts describe how many shots your loved one received? How much they suffered while being hunted down by the murderer? Are you that out of touch? Ms. McNeil, were your feelings hurt yesterday? Because here I thought you were a soulless person along with your fabulous team. Since the entirety of this trial, you have behaved as such, not once looking over at us, instead feeling empathy and compassion for the murderer. Whatever so-called attacks you're receiving, you brought upon yourselves, each and every one of you. Had you handled this case with more class and professionalism, we perhaps could have focused our negative feelings solely on the murderer. But professionalism, class, and respect is something only the prosecution seems to be acquainted with. I will repeat your words. Remember, this was a personal moral decision you all made. Like when you decide to marry someone, or when you don't want to marry someone. So look into your heart, look into your soul, and learn to live with the fact that you condoned the slaughter of 17 innocents. But I promise you that one day, I don't know when, you will ask yourself, did I make the right decision? Thank you, Your Honor, for the way you conducted this entire trial. Mike, Jeff, Carolyn, Nicole,
Stephen, Aaron, and Lori, thank you all from the bottom of my heart. You did not fail any of us at all. You are part of my family, and we are eternally grateful for each and one of you. Eagles Heaven and State Advocates, thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you. Mr. Emmanuel Oliver.
Good afternoon, Mr. Oliver.
Good afternoon.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, yes.
Thank you, sir. You can put your hand down and please state your full name for the record.
My name is Emmanuel Oliver, and I am Joaquin Oliver's dad.
Mr. Oliver, would you like to say something on behalf of your son Joaquin?
Yes, I do.
Please do.
I was advised not to be in this room since the very beginning of the trial, because if I have said something wrong, you guys could complain. And then I will feel very guilty, not only for my family, but for the other families. So I took an advice from some of my friends here and decided to stay home and watch you guys all time, and watch my brave girls, Andrea and Patricia, doing what they did. And I saw how this doctor was explaining the autopsy of Joaquin. Details that I was avoiding, because I always hoped that Joaquin did not suffer. But he did suffer. You shot my kid 4 times. You blew his head. His marvelous brain and ideas and dreams. You destroyed them. Shot him 4 times. You needed an AR-15 to do that, because otherwise Joaquin will have beaten the shit out of you. So you were coward enough. And you can't be cowards in this life. Hiding your actions. The middle finger, lady. Apologizing for a middle finger. You need to learn how to do a middle finger. So you don't need to apologize to anyone. Yesterday I heard all of you concerned about your children. It's ironic and unreal. The whole trial suddenly, oh, don't mess with my kids, my children. Keep away from that. Really? What about our children? So for a minute, the trial was about protecting your kids. That was crazy. That was crazy. I was told not to use profanity here. I won't. I'll try. I think that one of the reasons that you did this, I'm talking to you right now, is to be famous. So I think that someone will steal that fame from you. whoever takes care of you will own that fame. And someone will. You're going to die before me. And I will celebrate when you die. I heard you saying that you don't want to suffer. You don't like painful things. You understand that you will suffer and you will go through pain. A lot of pain. It would be much easier. Die like a king in a supervised way that everything goes. I wish I could die like that. That's not your future anymore. A lot of pain, a lot of suffering, and someone will replace your fame. And I'm closing this chapter today, but you're not. Your chapter opens today. And Joaquin is with us, his mom, with me. We are with him every single day. That day, you didn't kill me. You didn't kill Patricia. So we are still Joaquin's parents. And Andrea is still Joaquin's sister. And we do what parents do. We come here and let you know what is right or wrong when you fuck with our children. And a lot of people will hate all of you guys now. And they've seen your faces. And you can complain about what I'm saying right now. I don't care. Go ahead. I'm the last speaker, by the way, so I don't think nothing will happen if you say anything right now. And I have another message for you. It's not cool what you did. All the kids, the youth, that along with Patricia and myself, worked tireless every single day on debating gun violence and change the future of this nation, hate you. So if you were trying to be the cool guy, you're not. You're the worst. How does it feel? Nobody likes you. Sad. You know who they love, Joaquin? They love him. They send him messages. He has followers, millions of followers for all around the planet. And they will keep on following Joaquin while you are afraid of going through pain and die because someone will steal your fame. And this should be our chance to be very clear, sending a precedent out there, which is something that I was hoping it could happen here, but I'm afraid it didn't. Because if we have a death penalty option, again, you have heard this 1,000 times, and we're not using it to take care of this monster, then when are we going to use it? So, people that do what you do should be punished. And we have the chance to show everyone that that is an option. And we wasted that opportunity. So now, the families, including myself, we need to declare that precedent. That is wrong. People like you don't deserve a space here. And that's why we are so clear speaking.
We're not talking to you. You guys think that the whole universe goes around you. We are not talking to you. We don't care about you guys. You get offended like I'm talking to you. I'm talking to a whole nation. He doesn't deserve to be here in this society. But, as my wife said, karma. Oh, I'm crossing that line again. You did a great job. You did your best, and I know that. I can feel it. I saw it. And I admire all the families that were here, spending hours, days. I was with you. Trust me. I was crying in my office. Breakdowns. But I followed my friend's advice. Stay home, man. But not today, because today I can say whatever I want. And I can dress however I want. All right. Do I feel better now? I don't know. Tomorrow, you guys are going to go back to your perfect lives, enjoying your family. Tomorrow we're going back to our thing, missing our kids. And you are out of the picture. And you will be erased from the picture sooner than later. It's time for you to be afraid of me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
State has no more witnesses, Your Honor.
Okay. Does the defense have any testimony or evidence that you wish to present at this time? Good afternoon, Mr. Silvershine. I've had the opportunity to read the state's memorandum of law with regard to sentencing, SF 231. Does the defense have any objections to the state's interpretation of the law and the maximum sentence to be imposed on all 36 counts of the indictment?
No, Your Honor.
34 counts, excuse me.
No, Your Honor, we've also had an opportunity to review the score sheet, and we see no errors in that.
Your Honor, Joel Silvershine on behalf of the state. We've submitted a guideline score sheet which reflects a lowest permissible sentence of 1,029 months. That's been provided to the defense. At this point in time, as to the sentence regarding counts 1 through 17, which is murder in first degree, under Florida statute, chapter 775.082, there's only one sentence that can be imposed at this time, and that is life imprisonment with no possibility of parole. As to counts 18 through 34, which is attempted murder in the first degree with a firearm, those are life felonies. The court has the ability to sentence under the Criminal Punishment Code to life imprisonment. The lowest permissible sentence being that over 363 points also gives the court the ability to sentence the defendant to life imprisonment on those counts. Additionally, the court needs to consider the ability of the court of these sentences to run consecutively. And under the case law, under Chapter 921.16, subsection 1, that can be done. The court does have that option. The court also has the ability to sentence the defendant to life imprisonment on those counts involving attempted first-degree murder where not only because of it being a life felony, but for those crimes for which great bodily harm was alleged under the 1020 life law, because the guilty plea of the defendant acted as an admission or a confession to everything that is in the allegation in the indictment, that allows the court under that particular statute, which is the 1020 life law, to be sentenced to life imprisonment under that. For those 9 counts which did not involve, which was not alleged to have great bodily injury, where there is possession and discharge alleged, those crimes must have a 20-year mandatory minimum, also assessed along with what the state will present will be a request for life imprisonment. Those are the legal ramifications as far as the sentencing guidelines are concerned and the law. There is one other thing I would ask the court to address. On October 28th of this year, this would be SF-232. The state filed a notice to the defendant in the Department of Legal Affairs regarding Florida Statute 924.512. That is the Florida version of the Son of Sam law. And I read as follows. Comes now the state of Florida by and through the undersigned Assistant State Attorney and gives notice to the defendant in the Department of Legal Affairs that the state of Florida intends to invoke the provisions of Florida Statute Section 944.512, commonly known as the Son of Sam law, should there be royalties, commissions, proceeds of sales, or any other thing of value payable to or accruing to the defendant or a person on his behalf, including any person to whom the proceeds may be transferred or assigned by gift or otherwise from any literary, cinematic, or other account of the crime for the crimes for which the defendant is convicted. Any proceeds will be distributed as provided by law. This has been provided to the defense. I have also contacted the Department of Legal Affairs, and they acknowledge receipt of this as well. And with that, I will defer to Mr. Satz.
Your Honor, we would ask for the maximum sentence for the first 17 counts of the indictment of murder in the first degree. We would ask the court to sentence the defendant to consecutive life sentences for the 17 counts of first degree murder, and to counts 18 through 34, the attempted murder in the first degree. We would ask the court for each one of those 17 counts, sentence the defendant to life in prison. Each one of those 18 to 34 counts to run consecutive to one another. And all 17 of those counts of attempted first degree murder all be consecutive to the first 17 counts. All 34 counts to run consecutive. All 34 life sentences. That is our ask. Thank you.
Yes.
May I address the court on restitution for a moment?
Sure.
Judge, I need to apply to the defense and to the court 34 restitution orders, and we are asking the court to issue an individual restitution order for each of the victims of 34 counts, but to also reserve jurisdiction for the amount of restitution. I have been in touch with Mrs. Neal and informed her that we are still gathering the various numbers of paperwork with the individual victims and families. And I believe she was in agreement with the court ordering restitution, but setting aside and reserving jurisdiction for a later time to have a hearing on restitution.
So there's no amount on any count currently. It's just you want me to enter an open order of ordering restitution and reserving as to the specific amount on each of the 34 counts.
Yes.
So I may be misreading part of the sentencing memorandum, but it's my understanding that each and every count that alleges an actual possession and discharge, which is all of them, should have also a 20-year minimum mandatory prison sentence under Florida's 1020 life statute?
No, Your Honor. There are 9 counts which do not allege great bodily harm.
Okay.
There are 8 counts which allege great bodily harm.
Right.
And under the 1020 life law, it's 25 to life. We're asking the court, in addition to the life sentence which the court can impose, also a life sentence under section 775.087.
But wouldn't all of the 17 counts of attempted first-degree murder, because there was and it's not alleged anymore because he pled to it, a proven fact of discharging a firearm, wouldn't they all have 20-year minimum mandatory prison sentences?
Some are 25 to life, of the way they are charged in the indictment.
So I understand you're asking me to sentence all 17 counts of attempted first-degree murder to life in prison.
Correct.
With a 10-20 life firearm minimum mandatory prison sentence.
Depending on the way that the count is done.
So I saw where you said 20 years on 19, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 27, 31, and 32.
Correct.
And then what minimum mandatory are you asking, if any, to impose on the victims that suffered great bodily harm?
It's 25 to life, so it would be life imprisonment
With a mandatory
minimum life imprisonment under 775.087. And those would pertain to the following counts: 18, 20, 26, 28, 29, 30, 33, and 34. So it would be life mandatory under 775.087 for counts 18, 20, 26, 28, 29, 30, 33, and 34. And as to counts 19, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 27, 31, and 32, life imprisonment with a 20-year mandatory minimum under Florida Statute 775.087.
Defense, was that your understanding of the sentencing memorandum or the reasoning in the state sentencing memorandum?
Yes, Your Honor, we're in agreement with the state.
Your Honor, there's just one more matter. The state filed a notice for cost of prosecution of SF-233. I spoke to the defense. They're in agreement with the amount. I did attach an exhibit to justify the cost. I prepared an order for the court.
You may. And while the sheriff's office, I don't believe there's a representative here, but I think the defense can answer my question. I received an agreed order as to civil restitution lien to Broward Sheriff's Office, but the amount is much different than what was originally asked for. And so that's why I hadn't signed it yet.
So it is an agreed order between the defense and the Broward Sheriff's Office. I believe there's a statutory cap of $250,000. I believe that the cost of incarceration far exceeds that.
So you all are agreeing to the statutory cap?
Yes.
Okay.
And I have copies if Your Honor needs it.
I have the order right here. I just needed to reconcile the. All right, Mr. Cruz, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You can put your hand down. And Mr. Cruz, you pled guilty before this court on all 34 counts as alleged in the indictment on October 20th of 2021. At that time, I questioned you in depth as to your ability to understand the proceedings, your ability to consult with counsel, your ability to follow along. My observations of you during the course of the trial, including today, are that you are in fact following along, that you are in fact consulting with counsel when needed, and that you are not having any difficulty understanding the proceedings here today. Sir, has anything changed since the time that I accepted your plea, other than the fact that during your plea you were not on medication, and it's my understanding that you are now on medication? Is that correct? Yes, ma'am. Are you taking your medication as prescribed by your medical physicians in the jail? You're not taking any more or any less, is that correct? And is your medication affecting your ability to understand what's going on here today? Are you having any trouble concentrating? Are you having any trouble understanding me when I'm speaking to you, or understanding any of the witnesses as they're speaking? And you're able to follow along sufficiently? Do you have any questions about what's going on today? Have you had sufficient time to speak with your lawyers? Okay, at this time, the court's previous finding that the defendant is making a knowing, intelligent, and voluntary waiver of his rights stands. I do believe that he is competent to go forward in this proceeding, and that's based upon his answers to my questions, as well as the court's own observations of the defendant. Before I impose the sentence in this case, I want to thank the family members for the privilege of learning about each and every one of your loved ones. I can tell you that they will not be forgotten, and I feel that I know each and every one of them by the personal stories that you have given. By way of example, Mr. Beagle, I remember as the witty teacher with the dry sense of humor. Luke Hoyer as the unexpected baby that came but was so welcomed by his mom and dad. And these are just two that I'm remembering off the top of my head. You all have been so strong and patient and graceful throughout this process, and I can't help but think of how I would behave or respond if I were in your shoes. And the way that you have grieved so gracefully and have shown extraordinary restraint throughout this process is something that I've never seen. And as a group of people, you are so strong and so united that if anything good came out of this event, I feel seeing you, I can know that you are all going to be okay because you have each other. I know that that doesn't help at all, and if I could take your pain away or carry your pain for you just for 5 minutes so that you could breathe, I would. Because I can't even imagine what you go through each day. You are a wonderful, strong community. And I also want to tell you that when I visited that school, I expected tragedy and sadness, which is present. However, that school is still thriving, and it's a beautiful campus, and it's not broken like one would expect. And I think that that is due to the strength of you all and your community. And I think that when people remember that school, they're going to remember the strength of the community and how, I mean, every one of these kids came up here, the survivors, and testified as to the schools that they're attending and how well they're doing. It speaks volumes as you all as families, and the care and the love that you provide your children. And I couldn't help but notice when the survivors came in and testified that their family units came with them and were there for them. And I can't think of any other instance in one community where so many children would have not one, not two, but a group of loving family members to support them. And that's how I will always think of MSD, just as a great school that will survive, like you all have. So many of you thanked me. I want to thank you, because you were ordered so that we could have a fair and clean trial. You were ordered not to have emotional reactions, to show restraint that I don't believe. I think I would be like Mr. Oliver, and I would have to be in my office, because I don't believe I would be able to show the restraint that you all showed, and I thank you for that. It's the sentence of the court as follows. Count 1 of the indictment, the murder in the first degree of Luke Hoyer. The court imposes a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. Count 2 of the indictment, the murder in the first degree of Martin, Duque, and Quiano. The court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 3 of the indictment, the murder in the first degree of Gina Montalto. The court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 4 of the indictment, the murder in the first degree of Alexander Schachter. The court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 5 of the indictment, the murder in the first degree of Elena Petty. The court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 6 of the indictment for the murder in the first degree of Alyssa Al-Hadef. The court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. To count 7 of the indictment for the murder in the first degree of Nicholas Dworet, the court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 8 for the murder in the first degree of Helena Ramsey, the court imposes a life sentence, mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 9 for the murder in the first degree of Christopher Hickson, the court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 10 for the murder in the first degree of Carmen Centrup, the court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 11 for the murder in the first degree of Aaron Feiss, the court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 12 for the murder in the first degree of Scott Beagle, the court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 13, the murder in the first degree of Meadow Pollock, The court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 14, for the murder in the first degree of Kara Loughran, the court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 15, for the murder in the first degree of Joaquin Oliver, the court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 16, for the murder in the first degree of Jamie Gutenberg, the court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 17, for the murder in the first degree of Peter Wang, the court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 18, for the attempted murder in the first degree of Ashley Baez, the court imposes a life sentence with a minimum mandatory, Mr. Silverstein, it's 25 to life?
Yeah.
Or do I?
We're asking for life, Your Honor.
With a mandatory life sentence under Florida's 1020 life statute. Count 19, with the attempted murder, for the attempted murder of William Olson, the court imposes a life sentence with a 20-year minimum mandatory sentence under Florida's 1020 life statute. Count 20, for the attempted murder in the first degree of Kashava Magnapuram, the court imposes a life sentence with a mandatory life sentence under Florida's 1020 life statute. Count 21, for the attempted murder in the first degree of Justin Colton, the court imposes a life sentence with a 20-year minimum mandatory prison sentence under Florida's 1020 life statute. Count 22, for the attempted murder in the first degree of Alexander Dworet, the court imposes a life sentence with a 20-year minimum mandatory prison sentence under Florida's 1020 life statute. Count 23, the attempted murder in the first degree of Genesis Valentin, the court imposes a life sentence with a 20-year minimum mandatory prison sentence under Florida's 1020 life statute. Count 24, for the attempted murder in the first degree of Daniela Menescal, the court imposes a life sentence with a 20-year minimum mandatory prison sentence under Florida's 1020 life statute. Count 25, for the attempted murder in the first degree of Samantha Grady, the court imposes a life sentence with a minimum mandatory of 20 years Florida State Prison under Florida's 1020 life statute. Count 26, for the attempted murder, Mr. Silverstein, I see you're standing up. Did I
Just in case.
misspeak? Okay. Count 26, for the attempted murder in the first degree of Samantha Fuentes. I'm imposing a life sentence with a minimum mandatory of life under Florida's 1020 life statute. Count 27, for the attempted murder in the first degree of Isabel Checker. The court imposes a life sentence with a minimum mandatory prison sentence of 20 years Florida State Prison under Florida's 1020 life statute. Count 28, for the attempted murder in the first degree of Samantha Mayor. The court imposes a life sentence with a life minimum mandatory prison sentence under Florida 1020 life statute. Count 29, for the attempted murder in the first degree of Benjamin Wickender. The court imposes a life sentence with a minimum mandatory of life in prison under Florida's 1020 life statute. Count 30, for the attempted murder in the first degree of Madeline Wilford. the court imposes a life sentence with a minimum mandatory of 20 years Florida State Prison under Florida's 1020 life statute. Count 31, for the attempted murder in the first degree of Marian Kabachenko, the court imposes a life sentence with a 20-year minimum mandatory sentence under Florida's 1020 life statute. Count 32, for the attempted murder in the first degree of Stacy Lapel, the court imposes a life sentence with a 20-year minimum mandatory prison sentence under Florida's 1020 life statute. Count 33, for the attempted murder of Anthony Borges, the court imposes a life sentence with a mandatory life sentence under Florida's 1020 life statute. Count 34, for the attempted murder in the first degree of Kyle Lamont, the court imposes a life sentence with a minimum mandatory of life in prison under Florida's 1020 life statute. I am ordering that each and every count of the indictment run consecutive to one another.
Your Honor, on count 30, on count 30, that is a 25 to life, not 20 years.
Madeline Wilford.
Okay, excuse me. I misspoke. On count 30, there is alleged and proven the use of a firearm, discharge, and infliction of great bodily harm on Madeline Wilford. So I am correcting my previously imposed sentence. It is a life sentence with a mandatory life sentence under Florida's 1020 life statute. Again, I am ordering that all 34 counts of the indictment for each sentence is to run consecutive, that is, one after another. I'm ordering all mandatory court costs, all costs of prosecution. I'm ordering the costs of incarceration of the defendant by the Broward Sheriff's Office. I'm also imposing a public defender fee pursuant to Florida statute. I'm ordering restitution for each victim as previously named in counts 1 through 34 of the indictment, with the specific amount to be determined at a later time. I am ordering pursuant to 943-325, the defendant is to submit to 2 samples of his blood or less intrusive method for purposes of the DNA bank. Mr. Cruz, you are remanded to the custody of the Department of Corrections to complete the mandatory life sentences imposed by the court. You have 30 days to appeal the judgment and sentence of the court. If you fail to appeal within the allotted time period, or you fail to contest the imposition of any of the fees or costs imposed during that 30-day period, you will waive said appeal. I am also granting the state's motion under the Florida equivalent of the Son of Sam law, which means, Mr. Cruz, you will not be able to benefit in any way as far as monies are concerned as to the crimes that you committed. In addition, I am going to order the Department of Corrections to garnish the commissary account of Mr. Cruz until all of restitution and costs of prosecution and costs of the Sheriff's Office are paid in full. The Department of Corrections, I don't know where you're going, but they can assign that duty to their local office, where they will charge an applicable fee and garnish your commissary until all of these amounts that I have previously ordered are paid in full, specifically the costs of the sheriff, the state, and any restitution that is ordered. Is there anything else from either side?
Not from the state, Your Honor.
Is there anything from the defense?
Your Honor, the defense waives the PSI at this point.
It was previously waived. Then there was some discussion about whether it could be in a death penalty case, but the defense is maintaining their waiver of a PSI. Mr. Cruz, you're still under oath. Are you in agreement that you're not asking for a PSI in this case? Okay. Is there anything else?
Waiver.
All right, he's remanded to the custody of the Department of Corrections. And he's to be given credit in the amount of 1,718 days time served.